So this video might actually just be like 6-7 years late, but it's definitely something that I actually want to talk about. So I'm gonna talk about it. Hi, my name is Toki. I am your local internet friend, and today I'm going to be talking about One Direction. Mainly because I feel like it's one of those elephant in the room, someone has to talk about it because I haven't really seen anyone else talk about it. I'm not sure if I've actually talked about this in any of my videos, but I have. No, I did. I wasn't originally a fan of One Direction, and it's mainly because it felt like they were trying to shove One Direction down my throat for heckin' years, and it wasn't until like their best song ever era that I essentially just gave up and was like, okay, I'll allow it. And I was essentially a casual fan up until like 2015, where I became a bit more of an avid fan. I think I still would classify myself as a casual fan, although I have listened to most, if not all of the songs that One Direction has done. Anyway, the thing that I'm specifically wanting to address in this video is what I believe happened with Zayn leaving, One Direction doing one album after that, and then just like completely, as they said, going on hiatus. But again, 6-7 years. Then again, NSYNC has essentially been on hiatus for about 20 years, so who the heck knows what's going to end up happening. And while this might just be like my personal opinion based off of essentially subtext and my knowledge, my generalized knowledge on music industry and how certain companies can be like. But before we get into that, I do want to go ahead and make sure that I address facts first and then go into my own personal beliefs with what happened. Because as a fan of music in general, but also as a casual fan of One Direction, it kind of doesn't make sense, but it also kind of does. And as someone that doesn't really take to subtext, having to figure out subtext, this at the very least would end up just being a good closure, some good closure for me. So the members of One Direction were originally solo contestants on the UK's X Factor, who were thrown into a boy group. Didn't necessarily win that season of X Factor, but with the amount of, I'm guessing, popularity that they ended up getting through that, they still ended up skyrocketing to where not many people actually remember who won that season of X Factor. Regardless, because of the amount of fame that they ended up getting, specifically with teenage girls, they ended up getting skyrocketed into fame at a very young age, and ended up signing contracts without much industry information and with a poor management. Poor as in, I don't think they really care too much about okay, fair. I don't think they really cared too much about their artists that they had under their own management. But also with signing said contracts, they did not really have the ability to talk about much that happens behind the scenes. Not necessarily being completely open and honest about a lot of things as to whether they think that it's not the best idea or just that they legally couldn't. It all came to a head in 2015, specifically I think March of 2015, where Zayn ended up leaving One Direction. That action alone probably meant more than anything that he could have ever said about being under their management. Now, while the summarizing of Zayn leaving One Direction is lack of artistic expression in a five-piece group, basically his ideas weren't heard, or if they were heard, they were either not heard, not even given the not even given any attention or any acknowledgement, or they could have just heard, acknowledged, but never used any of his ideas. Well, again, it kind of makes sense. Five Piece. There's a K-pop group that specifically has 13 members. There's also the multitude of groups and subgroups under the name NCT. This is where the disclaimer also comes in which I only know as much as they showed publicly. My belief is simply that management ended up giving Zayn an ultimatum because he went up to talk to them about everything, and that didn't really go as planned. The main reason as to why I ended up believing that is simply because of when he essentially left One Direction. During his last performance with the group, everyone was crying. And if he was that sad to leave a group, but also that adamant on leaving the group, what would drive a person to do such a thing? And that's where I came up with the idea of he was given an ultimatum. And I believe the choices that he was given was either leave the group or just things stay as they was how it always had been. See, they didn't really start off with much artistic control expression. What was it? They didn't really start getting any type of control over writing or pretty much what they were going to end up putting on the albums, how they were going to handle a lot of stuff. They gradually gave them those responsibilities and the permission to do stuff, which on one hand, understandably so, but on the other hand, makes sense as to how we got here. It brings me to the question of, did they only say hiatus because there was no plan afterwards? Or was there a plan and everybody just decided no? I specifically believe that they decided to take a break after they released May in the AM for their own solo projects, but also that they didn't really have much of a plan to come back together. Basically, there was no plan of a reunion, and everybody has essentially been content with doing their own thing. And again, there's a reason as to why I specifically believe that they didn't really have much of a plan. And that is essentially what I do best, analyzing the lyrics in the songs that they specifically wrote for May in the AM. Now, I had to do a lot of work with this one specifically because, of course, there were songs off of Mate in AM that was not written by any of the members of One Direction after Zayn left. Putting aside all of the romantic love type context within the songs themselves, a lot of these songs kind of sound like a farewell. And if not a farewell, a we will meet again at a later date. The one specifically that kind of stands out to me is actually a line that was written in the song Long Way Down. We had it all and we walked away. Once again, it starts to make you think exactly why a person would do such a thing. And again, if we're talking specifically about artistic integrity and artistic expression, that probably makes sense. Oh well, the song history itself says this is not the end, we can make it. There, on one hand, it is essentially correct. This is not the end of them being in the public eye. It's just the changing of the seasons. Them going from being part of One Direction, transitioning into being soloists, solo performers, solo artists. Funnily enough, I had to go ahead and process through this because we're currently going through something similar with BTS. No one essentially has left the group, but the usage of the word hiatus kind of started putting me into a panic simply because of essentially being part of the fandom during 2015 and 2016. That isn't to say that what's going on with BTS is the same, it would be the same thing. They started off with way more artistic expression and control over their songs than One Direction did, and they still have a lot of artistic control and expression with the songs that they write. TLDR of what I was trying to say here is the reason why BTS had to take essentially a break is a completely different reason to the reason as to why One Direction had to go on hiatus. And with the song Home, which was essentially released as a single, it ends everything with, while the era itself might be over, we're not going anywhere. I'll never let you feel alone. What was the line? You'll never feel like you're alone. I'll make this feel like home. Basically, though it might be a new era, we are essentially still the same people that you fell in love with while we were in One Direction. So the TLDR of the entire situation was the hiatus itself wasn't planned, obviously. But the reunion also wasn't planned. However, the hiatus and essential breakup of One Direction was inevitable. And the last thing that they specifically wanted to do before they went their separate ways and decided to do their own solo stuff was to leave the fans with a proper farewell, which came in the form of the album Mate in AM, as well as a lot of their promotional stuff that they did throughout that era. And seeing as though that was everything that I had to say for this video, it is time for me to do the stereotypical YouTuber outro, where I, as a stereotypical YouTuber, would ask you to do the following. Yes, I was messing around with frickin' General Lemmings throughout this entire video. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell to be notified of whenever I post, and put down into the comments section any type of questions, comments, concerns, or ideas that you have for future videos in the comment section below. I said comment section twice in that situation, and I'm moving on. This has been your local internet friend, aka Toki, and this is also Toki saying Toki out.